Madam Speaker, outside of this body, I own 10 rental units in Washington State, and it's from this experience that I speak to you today. There's a misconception that regulation is antithetical to markets, but I would argue that regulation is part of a market to guide it towards outcomes that we want. In this country, at one point, we didn't pay people for labor. We ended slavery and set a minimum for hourly wages. At one time in this country, we let kids work in factories. That was changed, and there were parameters set around where children can work. Markets have regulations to ensure that they don't have bad side effects, and the housing market is an especially special market. Housing is mandatory. You can't just choose to go without housing. You either pay what the market bears, or you become homeless. As a landlord, I know that you can run a stable rental business with rent stabilization. My main cost is a mortgage. That's fixed. My variable expenses are much smaller than that fixed cost. My revenue comes from rent. I have the ability to raise rent as much as I want, but I don't need to raise it very much because it is so much bigger than my variable expenses to keep my business profitable. In fact, with this bill, if I was to raise rent 7% each year, my revenue would double in 10 years. That far exceeds the increase in my costs. While the details of loans, mortgages, management, things like that, they differ between small mom and pops and large rental buildings, the economics work for both. There are vibrant housing markets in jurisdictions that have rent stabilization. I also agree that rent stabilization is not the only answer to our housing crisis. There's much more that needs to be done in the supply side, and this body has done a lot of that, and we need to continue doing more. That said, this bill is just one reasonable regulation that we can implement to make sure that our housing market works for all Washingtonians. Please support this bill.